Hi everybody, welcome back. It's November 6th, 2022, and we're going back to Mars again. We're going to be looking at dunes, obviously, and these dunes have fascinated me to no end. There's so much here, and there are so many different kinds, and I'm going to show you a variety of them. I'm going to show you probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 different kinds of dunes, but I'm not going to get into much detail on them now. The first several pictures we're going to go through, we're going to look at 1 or 2 or 3 detailed pictures on these, but towards the end we have some, we're going to be going into detail on some that are very clear. Now, not all of these dunes are equal when it comes to trying to bring out the pictures. Some are easy to bring out and others just are not. I don't know the reasons why. Different camera, different angle, I don't have any idea why. So I'm just going to show you a couple pictures of each one of these different kinds of dunes, and then towards the end we'll get into some more detail. Now this dune here is a white colored dune, and they come in white or black, or also in this case gray. And this kind of dune here looks like ocean waves, and in fact I think NASA even said that, if I'm not mistaken. And these dunes, each dune, and they are massive, they are exceptionally huge, has many, you know, I would have to say millions of buildings in each one. And possibly many millions. Some of these dunes are spread out over a very huge, very large area. Now this is one of my favorite pictures here. It's a beautiful, beautiful dune, and it's hard to imagine that when you're looking at a picture like this, that this is made up entirely of structures. Okay, the entire dune, that's the whole point of this video, is that all of these dunes are made up of individual buildings by the many millions. And then if that isn't complicated enough, then you have the coloration. And none of the coloration that we see on these dunes is due to, by coloration actually I mean shading. All of the shading in all of the dunes comes down to what they want it to look like. It doesn't have anything to do with the sunshine or darkness or angles of light or anything like that. Like this dune right here, all the light areas that are presumably where the sun is touching the top is nothing more than just coloration of the buildings. And you know, that brings me to a point. I mean, really, why? I can't even begin to imagine why they do this. Right? Why they've constructed giant cities that are actually made up of buildings that make up these incredible dunes. Why would they do that? You know, we'll never be able to answer these kinds of questions for one glaring reason, and that is that these folks are aliens. At the end of the day, they are alien. And not only that, they've been around for such a very, very, very long time that they've had many millions of years to construct these cities and to, you know, construct whatever the hell they want. And they do. It gets really crazy. Now, sometimes we can't even begin to see the dunes because they're too blacked out. But here's a great example of black dunes on white ground, apparently. And this ground is not ground, it's also white buildings. And whenever we look at the dunes, no matter what dune we're looking at, it's not just the dunes themselves that are buildings, it's the whole surrounding area as well. I wasn't able to get much out of this picture here, unfortunately. This, I think, would have been a really, really interesting picture to to look closely, but we weren't able to do that. And the same thing with this one here. These are beautiful, beautiful dunes. I mean, how long would it take them to put these things together? I mean, even if they had a couple 100 million years to do it, you know? And then you look at dunes like this, these dark black dunes that surrounded the whole surrounding area is white or light in color. So where does all this building material come from? The questions that come up when we look at these pictures are, I'll just call them rhetorical questions, because there's really no opportunity for us to understand how all of this works. You know, there's always the usual questions, right? Food, you know, that's a big one. Food production. For all of these gazillions of people, there must be trillions and trillions of people on Mars. Where does all the food come from? How about water? Where does that come from? Other infrastructure. Do they use electricity? I don't know. But what about waste? There must be waste. So, you know, they're really unanswerable questions. However, just because those questions can't be answered doesn't mean that these things are not here. Okay? A lot of people like to assume, you know, well, geez, why this and why that? I mean, that doesn't make sense, so it can't be real. No, that just means we can't answer the questions. Now, here's a type of dune. These types of dunes are more prolific than the other types of dunes. I call these a worm dune, or a, you know, like a leech. They kind of look like a leech. Dunes here on the right kind of look feathery on one side. These things literally cover the planet everywhere you go. Almost every single picture is going to have at least one or two of those worm dunes in it, but these other big dunes they're farther and fewer in between, but they are still you know, pretty prolific. Now, these dunes here, you can see they look kind of hairy on the side, and many of these dunes here are under construction. With this many dunes covering the entire planet, you know, you have to be able to run across some that are under construction, and actually they're easy to find, particularly when you're talking about these worm dunes like this right here. Whenever you see what looks like a comb or a feather, this means that there are buildings that are under construction, putting these dunes together. And it's extremely complicated. I mean, look at all of those structures. And as I said before, not all the pictures are really great. I do the best I can with what we got. And sometimes what we have is not that great. Now these dunes here are also under construction, and they from a distance, you know, they really look like fish skeletons to me. You know, big giant long fish skeletons or snake skeletons, something like that. But once again, what we have here are dunes under construction, and this process never ends, apparently. It doesn't matter where you go on the planet, where the pictures come from. These things are always in motion. And I guess you have to continue building like this when you procreate. You know, when you already have 1 trillion people and they're having babies, I mean, how many babies are born every single day, right? The housing, and the other thing is, you know, how long do these people live? You know, I have a feeling they live a little longer than people here on Earth, right? 60, 70, 80, 90 years typically. What if these folks live to be 200 years old or 300 years old or more? Then these buildings, they need to keep building. They need housing for all of these masses of people. Now this dune picture looks a little different than the others. Once again, I don't know why, but I brought it out as best I can. And you can see the very, very tall buildings in the light areas, and that's kind of true of all the dunes. It seems like the lighter areas have the larger buildings, the taller buildings, and sometimes the darker areas have big, fat, wider buildings, not skyscraper, but short, fat buildings. But how tall are those skyscrapers there? I mean, those have got to be really, really tall. And one of the things that you'll see whenever you're looking at these tall structures, the first thing that you see are these white vertical lines going up and down. And the white vertical lines have attached to them black vertical lines, right? And so what that is you have the white vertical line is the sun hitting off the building, or it was colored that way. And then the dark line, vertical line, is the shadow. And so when you have these shadows and these white lines combined, it's very, very difficult to show. So I try to take the contrast way out of it, and so this gives it kind of a pasty look, but at the same time you can see the structures more clearly. So it might be a little pasty, but you know. And the thing about it is there just are so many of these. There just are so many. You know, this video today is about a 20-minute video, and this is the kind of subject that you could make a whole documentary on. I'm not going to do that, but you know, I can easily see at least a 2-hour documentary on all of these dunes. Maybe someday, you know, if I ever get to retire, or if I quit working and I have more time in my hands, I would love to do something like that. I've said frequently there's so much more that I could do, but between work and life, you know, I don't have all the excess time. Now in that last picture, for whatever reason, we're able to get some really good clarity on a couple of places, not everywhere. You know, I don't understand that either, but sometimes you got areas like this picture here where you can develop it very clearly, and then maybe an area next to it is not so much. And again, here you can see the light colored buildings versus the darker colored buildings, and you can even see rows or what look like streets going back. You know, I doubt if they have actual streets, but they have to get around somehow. Now, one of the things that I haven't really talked about very much is when we look at these dunes, we see all of these structures on the outside. This is what gives us the visual wow, you know. But what about underneath? What are these dunes actually made up of? That's a subject I'll get into down the road someday, but I can tell you that they're made up of buildings. And maybe slightly different kinds of buildings, but underneath they're made of buildings. So it really is very much like a hive mentality, you know. I mean, it's one thing to see these structures on the outside, but to know that from top to bottom it's made up of buildings, I just can't imagine. Isn't that beautiful? You can see the undulations of the dunes that they've created. And the dunes all look very, very real, except for their strange colorations. Like this one here is called The Hills Have Eyes. That's a name by NASA. And so these hills, or these dunes, have these black spots on them. And each one of these black spots is nothing more than black buildings or very dark buildings. And always these darker buildings, these clusters, these spots, are surrounded by light-colored buildings. Why they do that, I don't know. But also, not only are they lighter, frequently they are much larger than other buildings in the area. Not always, but frequently. But I mean, how can you, here again, it's another one of these rhetorical questions, but I mean, how can you live your life in a place like this? This is so far off from what humans are used to. You know, we're used to going outside and running around sometimes. This doesn't look like the kind of place where you go outside and get exercise or go hiking or anything like that. So you spend your life in buildings, I suppose, either on the surface or down in the middle. And again, I keep coming back to that word hive. You know, to me it seems very much like a hive mentality. And you know, if you have this many people living elbow to elbow by the many, many trillions, then you have to have some, I would think, that you would have to have, that they would be linked mentally somehow or another, that they are all, I can't think of the word, but that they, you know, they think what you think the person next to you knows. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems like they would have to have some sort of telepathy like that. Now there's an incredible picture of this little black spot, this dark buildings, and right behind it are very tall structures, and also in front and off to the side you can see that those are a little bit lighter. Really incredible. And what are these black spots anyway? Are they, you know, is that where the county seat is? Is that where they govern from? Or maybe they don't govern. Maybe they all know what they need to do and they just do it. You know, that's the thing about humans, right? We always know what needs to be done. We just never do it. We let other things get in the way. You know, our desires, our dreams, this or that, whatever it is. These other things get in the way and everything gets watered down. It's just like trying to get this climate change under control, right? Well, everybody has their ideas and everybody's going at their own pace, and some are and some aren't. And, you know, it's just recently reported it's not really working out. We're far, far away from what our first objectives were. So, you know, I don't know what's going to happen unless these folks are watching us and will come in and help us out. But I'm worried that they won't, because why should they? Why should they want us to survive? I mean, we're killing each other by the thousands daily. I mean, we're greedy. We're killing people. We're there's a lot of bad stuff going on here. So why would they want us to join the community in our solar system? Because we are dangerous. You know, Putin's beating the drum on this nuclear weapons. Well, you know, could be the end of us. You know, hopefully, obviously, that won't happen. But it could. And if we're willing to blow ourselves up, then we'd be willing to blow other people up because we didn't get what we wanted. So I can see where ET would stand back and let Earth run its course. Whatever happens, happens. If we manage to survive a terrible mess, then maybe we'll come out in the end wiser. And then at that time they would come help us out. I don't know. Right? It's all a big guess. So a lot of people who are connected, who tell us that they've been told various things by ET, and I hear stuff all over the map. So it's really hard to say what's going to happen in our world. My thoughts were, however, that we would end up like this someday, that our our little rock here, Earth, will end up being completely covered with buildings. But that's so far away, and right now it's just kind of a dream. You know, it's a wish, a hope that we will continue on, but there are no guarantees. And you know, we definitely could use a hand. You know, if somebody could just step in and get our focuses off of all of our little issues that we have with everybody. You know, start thinking about the big picture, about what's really important in our lives, and maybe we'll be able to continue on. You know, that remains to be seen. Anyway, folks, hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. We're going to be going back to the moon. There's a lot going on there, and we need to concentrate on that. And very, very soon, the James Webb Telescope was supposed to be putting new pictures onto the Worldwide Telescope moon. So we'll be looking forward to that. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye now.